Hello everyone, my name is Kristen and I have diabetes. I wanted to just share a little bit about what life has been like, and hopefully it will be helpful for someone, and quite honest, it's also a little bit cathartic for me just to talk about it. It's almost like talking to myself. I cannot stress enough, I am not a doctor. So do not take anything that I am saying as diagnoses for you. I'm just telling you how I feel, what treatment I've had, that kind of thing. If anything that I say strikes a chord with you, then by all means go chat with your doctor about it. However, I cannot diagnose you by any means. So please don't diagnose yourself based on what I have been through, what my symptoms are or anything like that. Talk to your doctor. So I hear all the time, you don't look diabetic. And that drives me crazy. And it's well-meaning people, and I totally get that. But there's just such a huge stereotype about what diabetes looks like, the type of people that get it, what type of lifestyle they live. And it's just really not accurate. It's, it's a very common disease, unfortunately. And, it's a very wide range of people that have it. I was diagnosed with gestational diabetes with my oldest. She's now 7. And then after she was born, I was pre-diabetic, and then I got pregnant with my son. He is now 5. And after him, I was pre-diabetic. When he was about 1.5 years, I was officially diagnosed with diabetes. At the time when I was pregnant and when I was diagnosed, I was healthy. I was, I'm tall, but average weight. Nothing crazy, normal lifestyle, nothing out of the norm really. And my dad does have diabetes, but he's type 2. He was diagnosed in his 50s, and it is kind of a lifestyle thing for him. So it didn't really occur to me that it would be an issue for me, but here I was. So thankfully it was very well managed. I had fantastic doctors to work with in my pregnancies, and no issues for my kids at all. They were both born perfectly healthy, 8 pounds, 8 ounces, and 8 pounds, 4 ounces, respectively. Didn't need anything extra at the hospital. Fantastic, happy, healthy kids. So, fast forward to my son being 1.5 years, and now all of a sudden I'm diabetic. And I mean, at that point, I was trying so hard, being pre-diabetic to hold it off, basically. I had basically cut out sugar completely. I was exercising 3 to 4 days a week, putting my kids in the double stroller and walking like 2 to 3 miles, 3 to 4 times a week. I was doing everything that they told me to do. And I could feel it. Like I was starting to not feel great, as my blood sugar would go too high. And I was mad. I was so mad because I was doing all the right things and it still wasn't working. So I was diagnosed with diabetes. And I was in the best shape I had ever been in. I was eating so healthy. I was great. But it wasn't enough. So I was diagnosed as type 2, and my doctor put me on Farxiga, which basically all that Farxiga does is it takes the extra sugar out of your system and it pushes it into your urine just to get it out of your body. And that on its own, combined with still same diet and exercise, just watching my carbs, basically not eating sugar, that was enough for about 3 years to keep my A1C like, all right, your A1C is a blood test. It kind of gets the average of your blood sugar over a 3-month period, to just kind of give like the big picture of how your blood sugars are. And with adding the Farxiga brought my A1C down to a pre-diabetic range, which was awesome. I felt a lot better. But I still had to be really careful about what I ate, and I had to make sure that I exercised. I would like to throw in here, yes, I tried the cinnamon. Um, I also tried chromium. My doctor suggested that as well. Neither of them really did anything. So yes, I did. I had so many well-meaning people tell me, oh, try this, try that, try this. And I kind of smiled and nodded, and like in my head, I'm thinking I did that a year ago and it didn't do anything. But I always appreciated people's concern and wanting to help me. It was just so frustrating. It was a very frustrating, it still is, just a frustrating chapter in my life. And so for about 3 years, that was enough, just the Farxiga. And then last spring, my blood sugar numbers and my A1C slowly started creeping up. Not anything huge, but going up. And then this past fall, in October, it's now March, not knowing when you're watching this, but it's now March. So this past October, my A1C had gone up enough that my doctor kind of said, okay, we need to add something else now. So she put me on Prandin, which basically just covers a meal. It's enough. It's still a pill, but you take it before you eat, and then it kind of takes care of that meal. So I was doing that with breakfast and with lunch, and I felt a lot better. When my blood sugar goes too high, I get really tired, like physically can't keep my eyes open, tired. And when it changes rapidly, so when it goes that high and then it comes down, I get really nauseous. So, I was feeling these changes. So adding the Prandin helped a lot with how I was feeling. But then when we did my blood work again in January, my numbers had still gone up. Even with adding a new medication, my A1C was higher, quite a bit actually. And I was completely shocked because I hadn't changed anything. I was eating all the same stuff. I was exercising the same amount. We had added this new medication and I had gotten worse. And I was angry. I was really angry, so frustrated. It's like, I'm doing everything, like absolutely everything. Why is it not working? So we added Januvia, which is a once a day, it's a 24-hour, like it's just supposed to help your body naturally release more insulin, to, keep your blood sugar down. And about a week later, after we added this medication, I'm in a Diabetic Moms Facebook group, and someone in the group posted something about this disease called LADA and how their doctor had thought that they were type 2, but it turned out that they had LADA. And I was like, wait, what? I've never even heard of that. What is it? So I Googled it because that's what you do. And I read about this disease called LADA. It stands for latent autoimmune diabetes in adults. Basically, it's type 1, but with a later onset. With typical type 1, your typical person that's diagnosed with type 1 is under 18. It used to be called juvenile diabetes. So it's still that same age range. And their pancreas just dies, basically. Just stops working. Suddenly, like there's usually not any kind of warning. It's just a very sudden thing and they need insulin immediately. And they're just on insulin for the rest of their life. But with LADA, it's the same end result, but a slower onset, where initially your doctor usually thinks you're type 2 because you don't need insulin right away, but it's slowly dying, and you gradually need insulin, and your pancreas just eventually stops working. And it kind of struck a chord in me, because I know this sounds weird, but I never felt like a type 2. I know that doesn't make sense. But because I was doing all of the right things, it was never a lifestyle thing with me. There were no dietary changes that I could make. I was already exercising. It wasn't anything that I was or wasn't doing. And it just didn't feel like, that sounds so odd, but it's the best way to explain it. So when I read about this, I was like, that sounds like me. So I called my doctor and I said, I want this test. How do we do it? And she said, I think you do have it, but I don't know if you're psychologically ready for insulin. So let's think about doing it maybe with your next round of blood work in April. And I kind of went, all right, sure. And I kind of stewed over it for a day. And I just kept thinking, but I want to know. Like, I want to really know. So I talked to a friend of mine who has been type 1 for like almost 20 years and was like, you know, this is my situation. What would you do if you were me? And she said, you need to switch doctors. And she recommended her endocrinologist. So I went to him the following week, and he tested me, and he also put me on metformin. He took me off of the Prandin, and he put me on metformin, and he tested me. And I do have LADA, which basically means that it's not caused by anything that I did or didn't do. It is an autoimmune disease in my case. And I can't be officially called type 1 because my pancreas still sort of kind of works, but not nearly as much as it should. So obviously it's not doing well, but it's hanging in there. So that was a huge relief, just knowing that there is a real cause and there's physically nothing I can do to make this disease go away. It doesn't matter how much I exercise. It doesn't matter what I eat. There's nothing I can do, which sucks. but it took some of the guilt, or I say it did. Sometimes it doesn't. But it made me feel a little bit better in that respect. So I started the metformin, and I had a horrible reaction to it. It like made my heart race. It made me shake. Horrible nausea, vomiting. It was terrible. It was really, really bad. I stuck it out for a couple weeks just to try, but I couldn't do it. So at that point, it was kind of my last resort. So my doctor said, if we can't do the metformin, then it's got to be insulin. And that was hard. That was a hard pill to swallow. I don't mean that as a pun intended. But at the same time, I was seeing how high my numbers were, and I was literally fighting to stay awake because my blood sugar was so high. You know, I saw how bad it was, and I got it at that point that I needed this. So he started me on Lantus, which comes in a nice little pen. You know, just put the needle on, you dial in how much you're gonna take, and you inject once a day. It's a 24-hour long acting. It's supposed to help you out. Started me on a really low dose. He started me at 4 units. And we very quickly realized that was not enough. I guess it was about 2 weeks ago that I started it. We slowly increased. I'm now at 10 units a day, and that seems to be a good spot. However, this week we realized that Lantus on its own is just not enough because I was still sitting between 200 and 300 for most of the day. So I'm also now on Novolog. Same idea, pen, needle that you twist on the bottom how much you're gonna take. And based on my blood sugar, I take I have a scale, what it is and then how much goes with it before each meal. So in 1 month's time, I went from taking exclusively oral medications to now doing 4 injections a day. And that's hard. That's really hard. It's a lot. Explaining to my kids what mommy's doing before dinner and breakfast. They had gotten used to seeing me check my blood sugar, but that's, finger prick, drop of blood, whatever. They'd gotten used to seeing that. This was like me putting a needle in my stomach. Granted, it's a small needle, but still, it's something to explain to them, and it's hard to understand. So that's been difficult. And all of this whole big thing has caused me to have a really crappy relationship with food. Thankfully, not really to the point of like an eating disorder, or at least I wouldn't. Maybe somebody would call it that. I wouldn't. I'm afraid of food, to be quite honest, just because for such a long time I really didn't know what was going on. And I cannot tell you how many times I would say to my husband, I'm afraid to eat because I'm hungry, but I'm afraid to eat because I don't know what the food is going to do to me. Like, I don't know how high my blood sugar is going to go. I don't know how I'm going to feel after, and I'm afraid of that. No, I'm not anorexic. I do still eat, I promise. But it's caused my diet to be very, very limited. I kind of stick with stuff that I know is safe, like I know how I'm going to react to it. So it's a very narrow, very, very narrow diet, which has made it really hard. It means that eating at a friend's house, going out to eat for a very rare date night is difficult, because I can't tell you how many times we've done that, and then something that I thought would be okay wasn't, and I'd feel, and I'd spike, and then I'd drop, and then I was all over the place, and then I'd feel sick for 2 or 3 days after. And I hit a point where just mentally it wasn't worth it to go out and eat away from home. So I became very resistant to breaking away from my routine, what I knew was okay, and I'm still working on that. I won't go into all of my everything. I'll just say that I'm seeing some improvement with my blood sugar now that I'm on the Novolog and the Lantus. I'm hoping that that will continue. I would hope that all of this has been helpful in some way for some of you, for someone, somewhere, I don't know. And I would very much like to just share my journey, my experiences, whatever you want to call it. Maybe share a little bit of some of the foods I'm eating, some of that kind of fun stuff, just to maybe be helpful in some way. So I would so much love it if you would join me for all of the craziness that I have coming, because it's never easy, right? But yeah, so I hope that you'll hang with me for all of this, and see where all of it goes. I don't know. So I hope that I haven't bored you insanely. I hope that some of this has been helpful in some way, just to give you a better idea of what some of us struggle with. So have a super fantastic day, and I hope that I will see you again soon. Bye.